Hey everyone, welcome. When we think of dams, we usually picture these huge concrete structures, right? Built by people. But what if I told you nature can build its own dams? And sometimes it happens almost overnight. It's a pretty wild story. So let's get right into it.
So let me ask you this. Can nature really build its own dam? I mean, without any help from us, just a dam strong enough to stop a whole river? Well, the answer is a huge yes. And how it all goes down is, well, it's just incredible.
Okay, so our story begins with what you could call surprise dams. So picture this. There's no construction crew, no concrete, no steel. Instead, a river gets blocked by a sudden, massive act of nature itself. And what that creates is something totally wild. And, you guessed it, super unpredictable.
And the result? It's called a barrier lake. It happens when something huge, like a landslide or a glacier or even a volcanic eruption, just suddenly throws up a wall and stops a river dead in its tracks. And with the water having nowhere else to go, it just starts to pile up, creating a whole new lake right then and there.
Okay, so what's the big difference between one of these natural dams and the ones we build? Well, the dams we're used to are made of concrete and steel, right? They're engineered to last forever. But a natural dam? It's basically just a giant messy pile of loose rocks, dirt, and maybe some ice. So you can probably guess that makes them way, way more unstable.
And because they're so unstable, you just never know how long they're going to stick around. I mean, some of these lakes might only be there for a couple of days before the dam just gives up and washes away. But then you get these incredible exceptions, like Lake Sarez in Tajikistan. A huge earthquake and landslide created it more than a century ago, and it's still there. How wild is that?
But here's where the story takes a turn. See, these barrier lakes, they kind of have two faces. On one hand, they can be unbelievably beautiful. But on the other, they can be seriously dangerous.
So let's talk about the good stuff first. When one of these lakes pops into existence, it can create an absolutely stunning landscape. I mean, look at Attabad Lake in Pakistan. That water is this brilliant turquoise color, and now it's a huge spot for tourists. Plus, these new lakes become brand new homes for fish and birds. It's kind of like nature giving itself a surprise gift.
But for every beautiful photo, there's a much darker side to the story. That rising water has to go somewhere, right? So it backs up. And that can cause massive flooding upstream, wiping out farmland, roads, and sometimes even whole villages. People can lose everything, just like that.
And that brings us to the biggest danger of all. Remember how we said these natural dams are really unstable? Well, what happens when that shaky wall of rock and dirt just can't hold on any longer?
Yeah, this quote really nails it. The scariest part is that the collapse can happen with zero warning. And when it does, a huge wall of water is just unleashed. It comes rushing downstream with unbelievable force. It's a truly terrifying thought.
And look, this isn't just something that could happen. It has happened many times. Let's go back to a real-life story from Wyoming. In the U.S., way back in 1927, a massive landslide blocked a river and created one of these barrier lakes. Now, the folks living down in the valley knew the lake was there, but they had no clue just how dangerous that natural dam really was.
And then it happened. The dam broke. The flood that came down was so powerful, it just completely erased the nearby town of Kelly from the map. 6 people lost their lives that day. Just awful.
And please don't think this is just some old story from the history books. This is a real, modern threat. We're seeing this happen today. In just the last few years, there have been similar devastating events in places all over the world, like in Nepal, Peru, and Taiwan. This is absolutely a global issue.
Okay, so faced with a danger this big, you have to ask, what can we even do about it? How do we keep people safe? Well, the good news is, modern science gives us some really powerful ways to get ahead of the problem.
It really breaks down into 4 key steps. First, you've got to monitor them. That means using satellites and all sorts of sensors to keep a 24/7 watch on these lakes, looking for any changes. Second, you have to have a plan. You work with the local communities so that everyone knows exactly what to do if an emergency happens. Third, the scientists get in there and study the dam itself to figure out how stable or unstable it really is. And finally, if a lake is just too dangerous, engineers can actually step in and create a special channel to let the water drain out slowly and safely.
So, why are we talking about this? What's the big takeaway for you and me? Well, learning about barrier lakes is more than just a cool science lesson. It actually teaches us some really important things about our planet.
First off, it shows you just how fast our world can change. I mean, an entire new landscape can pop up overnight. That's mind-blowing. It also shows us that Earth science isn't some boring topic in a textbook. It has real-world consequences for people's safety and their lives. And maybe most importantly, it's a huge reminder that we all need to be prepared for natural disasters, no matter where we are.
So that leaves us with one last big question to think about. These barrier lakes, they're powerful, they're beautiful, and they're dangerous. They're one of nature's secrets, created right in front of us. It really makes you wonder, right? What other incredible secrets is our planet hiding, just waiting for us to notice?